This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 514 for the week of October 27th, 2024. Well, hello and welcome back to Kanzenshuu, the podcast, an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site, Kanzenshuu. We cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of entertaining. I'm Mike, back at you here. I am not alone this episode. I'm alone for a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but I got a great chat for you. I just finished editing it, so I'm recording all the other stuff to stitch around it. Joining me this episode to chat about, it's an interesting chat. It's about Daima, but it's about Kanzenshuu, but it's about both of those things and just kind of like the situation we find ourselves in these days with the launch of a new series, the loss of Toriyama, how we're taking it in, what we're doing with it. Joining me, fellow co-founder Heath Hujio, you know him, here from Kanzenshuu, chatting all that stuff up. So that's coming at you very shortly here on the podcast. Podcast is actually an interesting place because I was able to grab Heath this weekend and I've already recorded the next episode of the show too. So you can look for that probably sooner than you might think. Before we get to the main meat here this episode though, I'm actually going to hit you up with a little news and then we'll go into the main topic and then I'll hit you on the flip side of all that with some website chat. So here we go. Hey, let's talk some Dragon Ball news. Not sure if you caught this, but there is a new Dragon Ball series airing on television and streaming services right now. It's called Dragon Ball Daima. Yeah, obviously, if you're listening to Kanzenshuu, almost certainly you have heard and know that there's a new series. You are probably watching it right now. You may have just got done watching an episode and said, hey, let me go check out that podcast. As I'm recording now, we have 3 episodes in. We're getting a little bit of more news about the series, kind of as it happens. This will be something you hear Heath and I talk a little bit about. We got some news out of New York Comic-Con, mostly about the English side of things, but also just seeing how Daima is being rolled out and wrapped into all the other supporting pillars of the franchise, I guess, namely video games. So Daima is coming to, we already know, Sparking Zero, launched with Goku Mini, but it's going to be hitting Xenoverse 2 and then Dragon Ball Z Kakarot as well. All of that stuff is getting Daima content. So that just means that Ken and Randy will be back again to talk Kakarot expansions in the future. That's very cool. It's hitting the card game as well, the Fusion World thing that I honestly know nothing about, but seems to be a silent champion for the franchise over in that corner over there. We know there's going to be a new Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour 2025 over in Los Angeles. And then really, I think the cool stuff that came out of the panel at Comic-Con was really just seeing some more of Toriyama's artwork. Great to see this landscape shot here, looking at the plane, the plane/spaceship, and even the troll design. Just getting a chance to see this stuff is really cool, really great. And I'm glad we got that. Some of the big news coming out of Daima was when episode 2 aired. Now, Heath and I will talk about some episode guide page stuff. One of the notes that I wrote for episode 1 of Dragon Ball Daima was that it was very interesting that we had Yumiko Kobayashi announced as playing Kaioshin Mini for the series. But then when we got the first episode of Daima, it's kind of like all the regular cast. So we had Shinichiro Ota playing Kaioshin there. Now, if you don't know, Kaioshin role is kind of interesting. Yuji Mitsuya, can I say friend of the site? Yuji Mitsuya is the original voice actor for Kaioshin. Whenever he's been unavailable or maybe they had different plans, Shinichiro Ota stepped in to play that role. Ota played Kaioshin in GT and Dragon Ball Super. And so they're credited for Kaioshin. The first episode of Daima was Ota. That was interesting because Kobayashi was one of the few that had been announced ahead of time with the show's cast at all. We got the Pansy voice actor and we got the Glorio voice actor. But yeah, then we get to episode 1 and it's everyone until episode 2, and then suddenly everyone gets a new voice when they are turned into children. Now, listeners of the show probably remember, was it maybe 2 episodes ago? I genuinely had no insight into this whatsoever. And I believe AJ, when he didn't really know how to answer me there, I wondered if this was going to be an opportunity for almost a a softer reboot of the voice cast. And I suppose it remains to be seen, right? Like, are these folks only going to be playing the mini versions of the characters? And if and when everyone is returned to normal at the end of Daima, if that's the thing that happens, will we get back, Mayumi Tanaka? Will we get back Ryo Horikawa instead of the new cast here? And that at least explains why Kobayashi was announced as Kaioshin, and yet we got Ota as regular sized Kaioshin in the very beginning of episode 1 there. Otherwise, I don't know what there is to say about the rest of the cast. It's kind of like the current version of the legacy cast. And by that, I mean any replacements that we've gotten by way of Kai and Super, those are the voices of those characters. So we have a couple things there, like Bin Shimada took over as Babidi for the late Joji Yanami, starting in 2014 for Dragon Ball Kai. We had Ryuzaburo Otomo taking over as Shenlong after the late Kenji Utsumi. I think with Battle of the Gods is when Otomo took over there. Aya Hirano in as Dende. We also, of course, have Aya Hisakawa in for the late Hiromi Sudu for Bulma. We have Naoki Tatsuta as the narrator, again taking over for the late Joji Yanami during Dragon Ball Super. And so what's kind of interesting is then as we get into episode 2, with the changes to the voice actors, if there's any character who's not a mini version of themselves, it remains the current version of the legacy cast version of them, which is very confusing. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned Otomo as Shenlong, continues there, just had, I think, minor lines at the beginning of episode 2, then he was gone, so it almost doesn't count. So then what we really get is Ken Uo as Karin, who took over for Nagai beginning with Dragon Ball Super, and then we have Umigame, which, did he even say anything or did he just kind of grunt? But he sure got a credit there. Takahiro Fujimoto, who took over for the late Daisuke Gori, beginning with Dragon Ball Kai. So it really seems to be, if it is a non-mini version of a character, we will get their old/existing voice. And then we got the big swap out on, I think, 13 voices. If we run down the list here, we've got Kaioshin that we mentioned, Bulma, Vegeta, Piccolo, Kudidin, Chi-Chi, the Turtle Hermit, Trunks, Dende, Mr. Popo, Kibito, Mr. Satan, and Majin Buu. And we actually got comments from a lot of those folks on the Dragon Ball official site as well. So this is kind of like news, but also just the state of the episode, and interesting and curious, and we'll learn and see more as we go. Certainly characters that we haven't seen include Gohan. A lot of folks curious about Gohan. Nozawa did play Goten for that little moment there where Goten and Trunks are rolling around, so it seems like Nozawa will continue on for any characters that she has. Just really interesting, really curious all around. Otherwise, the news for Daima is, hey, we're 3 episodes in. We've got an opening and ending theme. We've got an eye catch now as of episode 3, and onward we go to the rest of the series. So at this point, I want to chat some manga stuff before we transition over to the main meat for this episode, the topic. A lot of manga stuff going on right now, and that a lot has come to a close and is transitioning, and then there remains a lot that we don't know about. So, brief recap. Shueisha obviously has a weekly Shonen Jump. That's like the flagship magazine. That's where Dragon Ball itself was originally serialized. The 2 other main supporting magazines that are relevant to Dragon Ball here in 2024 are V-Jump and Psycho Jump. If you're a longtime listener, reader of Kanzenshuu, you certainly know what these magazines are. But in case it's your first rodeo here, V-Jump, originally meaning a virtual jump, is I call it the multimedia focused supporting spin-off magazine, primarily video game content, but also supports all the manga and the anime stuff and the movies and everything there. It's the place where the spin-offs and the sequels go for serialization. It has also been home to one-shots over the years. Toriyama was there from the start with V-Jump. V-Jump is the magazine where Dragon Ball Super was serialized. Super, we know, went on hiatus with chapter 103 back in March this year. To this day, as of the latest issue, I'm looking over here, this is the December 2024 issue. Remember, V-Jump comes out on the 21st of every month, and it's forward dated 2 months from when it is. So the December 2024 issue came out on October 21st, 2024. The back of every issue in its next issue preview content still has a tiny little statement that says the Dragon Ball Super manga will be on hiatus next issue. Whether or not there's an actual plan for that, we have no idea. Contrary to what you may read out there on other sites, there are no official formal statements about what is coming next or when, other than that little thing right there. So what's going on besides Dragon Ball Super stuff? Well, Dragon Ball Heroes, now in Super Dragon Ball Heroes and now basically over, Heroes is coming to an end. The 13 plus year reign of Dragon Ball Heroes is over. Long live Dragon Ball Heroes. Also long live Dragon Ball Super Divers, taking its place in arcades with a digital / physical card base. It's basically the same thing. So Toyotaro of the Dragon Ball Super manga, just this issue in V-Jump contributed a single one-shot for Dragon Ball Super Divers. It doesn't actually have a title beyond that. It's just called Dragon Ball Super Divers. It's roughly a recap of the Nappa and Vegeta fight with an avatar standing character playing in quotes alongside the characters there. And that's it. It's just a 30-something page chapter introducing that arc and the idea of playing a game again. Kind of is what it is. Looks nice, and that's that. That's what Toyotaro has been up to. Then over in Psycho Jump, which is the thicker magazine aimed at an even younger audience. It's one of their, I will call it the indoctrination avenues vehicles for their various franchises. There have been a ton of Dragon Ball Heroes manga over the years. I suppose the big one was anything that Yoshitaka Nagayama was doing. Meteor Mission, named for the same mission in the arcade game, was the most recent one. That came to a close with 12 chapters last issue. As far as I know, we don't know what Nagayama is up to next. I don't think we've seen a formal announcement of if Nagayama is going to get a series that takes place within the story world of Super Divers, the same way that had multiple series with Heroes. What we do know, however, is that Yuji Kasai, who previously worked on the Super Dragon Ball Heroes Avatar series, that's a series about actual kid players playing the game. Kasai's getting a new series. Let's Super Dive, it's called. That is going to start in the next issue of Psycho Jump, which is out here, in about a week from now? I think it may actually come out later this week. Here, let's look in the back of the issue. We can fact check live on the air. I'm looking at the November issue. It says the next issue comes out. Yep, comes out on November 1st. That is what? That is this Friday that next issue is out. The description and the artwork for Kasai's new series, Dragon Ball Super Divers, Let's Super Dive, looks to be the same as what the Avatar series was. So I wouldn't expect much in the way of kind of like in-universe story stuff there. So what else do we know and don't we know? To my earlier point, we still don't know what the future of Dragon Ball Super will be in manga form. Maybe it will be something, maybe it will be nothing. As you hear Heath and I talk about, makes sense to not compete with the juggernaut that is Daima right now. Let's not take away attention from that. We don't know if the Dragon Ball GT anime comic may return one day. I know I've talked about this on the podcast recently, but the Super 17 arc remains the one that hasn't been serialized in Psycho Jump. So will that come back around again? The Sandland full colorization finished up in Psycho Jump, and then that was gone. So I kind of thought maybe they'd bring GT back to take its place, but no. So Psycho Jump is really down in terms of Dragon Ball content. And then there was an announcement that there's going to be some kind of announcement for Naho Oishi and Dragon Ball SD next month. And by next month, we're looking at next week. I don't know what that is. Is it going to be like, hey, it's done and she's taking over something? Is Oishi going to get a Daima serialization? That makes sense. That would be incredible. Is it just that SD is over? Is that she's doing a one-shot of something? I have no idea. So I look forward to it. Maybe by the time you hear this, you know what's coming out. And that's kind of where we are. As we look ahead to November, Super Divers hits arcades. This one new manga starts. Other announcements are coming. Who knows? You'll know as soon as I do, I guess. Other than that, Sparking Zero came out, seems to have sold about 3 million copies in its first day-ish. I have been poking at the game. We certainly will chat about it here on the show. More to come on that. I don't think my thoughts will surprise anyone. A little bit of podcast lore. The first episode of Kanzenshuu EX, the podcast that came out in November 2005, was a look back review / commentary on the very first Sparking game on the PlayStation 2. Sparking is built into the DNA of this podcast, I think, for better or for worse. So look forward to that. Hey, Kieran, we still talking about Sparking? Yeah, I'm talking to you, buddy. I think that's it. With that all said, let's transition to the main topic for this episode. Myself, Mike, and Heath chatting. It's kind of like the state of affairs these days. Dragon Ball Daima, work on Kanzenshuu, how we're feeling, still reflecting on the loss of Toriyama, and what the future holds for us. Enjoy the chat, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hey, well, I have you.
Yeah.
So I've been working a little bit on the cast guide.
Yes.
My free time. So I'm doing like a huge revision.
Okay.
Essentially, I'm recoding almost the entire page.
For what purpose?
I'm adding like filtering and like what we have for the press guide and translation and all that, where you can select it by series or, hey, show me everybody by their last name, or
nice.
Show me only the TV people, show me only the movie people.
Holy shit.
Show me
nice.
all the, if it's only a feature, things like that. Show me all the Dr. Slump people. Like, you can click that one. I'm really far along in it, actually. I'm hoping I can finish it up this week. It's been really fun, to say the least, because it's totally different in how everything is actually originally scripted compared to translations and press, production, things like that. So it's literally straight up, the whole page has been recoded. All of the back end has been recoded.
It's funny how you just find and make those projects for yourself. Like,
I do.
You know what? This is what I'm doing.
And 100%, and we've said this to everybody from day one, I use this guide to reference things.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden it's like, this is really annoying. I wish I could
need
do this.
Yep,
and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do it. I don't care if anybody else uses it, but I need it because it's so much easier for me. The reason I can go through and do a lot of the credits so fast is because of all the revisions I did to the production guide.
I believe it.
I can go through things so much faster. God, that makes such a difference. And I know AJ's been using it because literally you just start typing one thing in and you can find them right away. Mm-hmm. Makes it so much easier because this page, the cast guide, has not changed since Kanzenshuu, essentially.
No. Yeah, I know. It's roughly the same exactly format. The same. Yeah.
And I'm like, it's kind of like an archive or a database in a way. We might as well make it the same. And a lot of the scripting on the back end, like the JavaScript, is not that dissimilar. Mm-hmm. So I can pull it in and just tweak certain things and make it a lot more usable than just it takes forever for the page to load because it's so large to begin with. Yeah,
but that's the kind of page where you expect that.
So if we're going to make it that difficult to load, we might as well make it easy to use.
All right, 2 questions. Yes. 1, are you already recording? And 2, is this part of what we're recording? Okay.
Yes. 100%.
Well, you know what? Here we are, 6-7 minutes into the conversation.
I have 8.5 minutes.
Okay.
Whatever you want. I'm yours, Mike. I'm here. I will say, and whether this makes a podcast or not, I recently, within the past 3 or 4 weeks, have really been so reinvigorated.
Oh my God, me too, man.
With working on things, and not just because I need to update this and this, but the engagement and the people I've talked to, and then working with you and working just on things that hey, I wanted to get this done before Daima started, and I didn't really, so I'm just going to dive into it.
Yeah.
And we've gotten so far with so many things that, and I'm really happy with how we had set things up already ahead of time.
Yeah, we were kind of ready this time.
I know in my mind, I set up a lot of things ahead of time. It was 2-3 months out. Of Daima's premiere, just because I'm I want to get this done so that it's ready to go.
Yeah.
So that we can dive into it. So that has helped tremendously. If Toei could just always give us at least a year heads up, I think we could not stress ourselves out as much as we have in the past.
There's a couple things in there. One is I'm just thinking about the episode guide pages. We basically went from, it took us 3 days for episode 1 to 2 days for episode 2 for and then to 1 day for episode 3. So it just kind of speaks to the turnaround time we've been able to have on that. Episode 1 was different because it was kind of like a double length episode. So that made sense. I mean, I honestly think the most time, or the thing that took the most time for episode 1 was literally me just doing the episode synopsis for that, because it's just long and boring, and the credits weren't what you had for episode 2, but I guess we'll get to some of that. The other thing that I've kind of been thinking about with regards to Daima here, it's more in comparison to some of the movies, I guess, but a little bit for Super as well. We haven't had like magazine coverage for the series at all. Like there's no features or interviews or anything out there. We certainly talked about that a couple times with AJ, leading up from the earliest days of the Magic rumors to the launch of Daima. Like there's a lot of lulls. What is the marketing for the show? But as we've hit it, like I'm really starting to understand it a lot more. But at the same time, there's kind of nothing. It's like, we don't know what the episode's going to be until we get the next episode preview. Like, we don't know cast stuff ahead of time. Yeah. And they're just doing the official site updates. Like, as soon as the episode is live, like, they'll do a news story. Like, it's simultaneous news as opposed to preemptive news, which is very different. I mean,
I'm torn both ways. Honestly.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. Battle of Gods was very different because that was, first time in however many years, and it was a movie. And we had literally every magazine, newspaper, whatever, had some kind of interview with someone out there. And that kind of trickled off over time. Super had a couple of the Animedia features, and maybe Daima will still in the future. I actually totally forgot I meant to get to start picking up Animedia over the course of Daima just to see if anything pops up. But I've certainly not seen anyone say that there is something in there, which leads me to believe that there probably isn't. But I should probably do my due diligence there and just have the archive along the way.
I think VJump's the only one that's really featured it.
Yeah. And Psycho Jump's obviously, monthly as well. I'm looking at, what issue is this? This is the November issue. The December issue is going to hit next month. So that'll be the first one that's out as of the series being released. But yeah, it's just kind of like recap stuff they've already announced. The way the Dragon Ball official site is set up now, covering Daima feels very different because there's just like, there's very few, but they're big things. Like it'll be, okay, here's the trailer. Okay, here's voice cast stuff. Okay, here is the song stuff. And it's just very concentrated on those announcements and those releases of that info. And like we do it and that's it. And here we are 3 episodes in. I don't know. I almost don't know how to articulate what it's like covering this series. It's very weird.
Well, you should say this for the podcast. I know. Because honestly, I think that is the discussion. Its production-wise has been so different. Its coverage has been so different. Its advertisement has been so different.
Yeah.
It's night and day. I mean, there are so many things that I have questioned about production-wise. The production, honestly, has been flawless. I love the animation production, the amount of effort they put in, the fact that we know that this has been ongoing for so long.
Yeah.
Yet there are things that all of a sudden it's not till episode 3 that we even get an eye catch animation.
Yeah, that's bizarre to me too.
The fact that I understand why they did it in episode 1 of we want to cover this X amount of material and we're not going to have an introduction. We're not really going to have an ending. We're just going to kind of dive into it, and we're gonna move all these credits to the end. And it's like, I get it. It's the first episode. You're doing that. But then certain things come in the second episode. Then certain things come in the third episode. Yeah. It's just kind of like, are we adjusting as we go, as it was
even now
that we are, okay, we're going to take this to TV. So we're going to start splicing and moving things around so that we can fit more of a TV time frame as opposed to, any type of streaming, or where we have a solid block of 30 minutes as opposed to we have to fit in a commercial break. And now we only have this much time to work with. So we're going to slowly adjust things. And production on episode 1 has been done for so much amount of time. And so we can't really go back and revise that because it will screw everything up. And we can't really do that for episode 2 either, but now we can fit in an eye catch animation for episode 3.
Yeah, I don't quite get that.
And it's just kind of like, what is happening there? But I get it. Like, I'm not upset about it.
No, it's just interesting. And it's curious
of when things show up, because in every other series, it has never been that way.
Sure, but there have been like adjustments to the eye catches, or like the music didn't quite line up. I know there was some stuff early in GT like that, or is unfinished. The thing that's interesting about that to me is how healthy it otherwise seems. And from all accounts, especially what AJ has said, like a lot of this stuff has been done for a while.
Oh, absolutely.
So it kind of makes you wonder, like, well, why didn't they just put the eye catch in episode 2? There was some kind of reason there. We're going to talk a little bit, about what we think about the episode so far. If it's not clear or obvious to you, we're going to do the traditional Kanzenshuu, like larger batches of content reviews, knowing that this series is likely going to be a shorter one. Maybe we'll either find or know what an appropriate midway point will be, and we'll do like a part 1 there. So this is going to be more us talking about our own work and like initial stuff there. So we'll talk about what we think about these episodes, but we're also going to talk about our own work and how that's kind of been shaking out over these last few weeks.
A big aspect of how this has been going is just the engagement of a lot of people. Especially with Dragon Ball Super manga taking a hiatus.
Yeah,
I think can we say at this point was intentional? Is that kind of, and it's weird, honestly, how everything fell between Toriyama passing away and we also have Daima starting. Like a lot of that compete? Really overlaps way more than I think they had ever intended for that to happen.
This is just how Dragon Ball goes. Going back to, I was going to say as early as, but then I'm like, well, no, that's a mid, that's late, but no, that's 20 years ago. As early as something like the PS2 games and the Kanzenban unintentionally overlapping. This is something that does seem to happen with Dragon Ball. And as listeners heard last time when we reviewed the superhero arc, Ken had some strong feelings about like, hey, did they kind of rush the end of chapter 103, either knowing or in reaction to what was going on there? Was maybe there another one chapter planned and there was still possibly a hiatus planned? I think it makes sense that the super manga was probably going to go on hiatus anyway, to my earlier point / word there, like why compete with Daima? You want to give the bigger new thing that's getting a worldwide release its appropriate attention.
And I agree with that, which I think brings up a very valid discussion that we haven't quite had yet, is the worldwide release. I know you and I have worked a lot on these episode guide pages so far. And we've had comments from people of just how insane it is that we have an episode guide page that can be done within 24 hours of an episode airing.
It's very different.
That is the day and time that we live in. And it is so different from even Dragon Ball Kai, Dragon Ball Super. Those are really the more modern era series that we've dealt with personally. Dragon Ball Z, GT. GT maybe is more of the cusp of, okay, we're coming into the fandom. There's a little bit of a gap between what's happening in Japan and what's happening in North America, or what we have access to.
There were 2 months between the end of GT and the start of my website.
Yeah. And you have Dragon Ball Kai, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Daima are all happening in sequence, more or less, of what's happening in North America. And yet Dragon Ball Daima is the first one that is literally, hey, from day one, we're going to do simulcast. We're going to do this. It is insane. It is absolutely insane for someone that grew up in the other era of this was never even a possibility. Like the thought of this happening is, I can't put it into words, honestly. It is so weird. It is so weird that a show airs and I can watch it at the exact same time and I can see subtitles and I can review the credits almost immediately of the episode airing and not have to wait a week. That's so weird. That is so weird. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
People forget that Super was not simulcast from the beginning. Like, even within the last decade, we had stuff that was delayed. The manga was doing catch up for a while. And then, the simulcast for Super didn't start until Vegito showed up during the Goku Black arc. And
I think even when AJ was on previously and we discussed a lot of the promotion, there was a huge question mark for a long time of whether this would be simulcast.
Yeah, as of 2 episodes ago of this podcast, we had no idea.
Yeah. So the fact that it's even happening and how quickly it turned around that, oh yeah, we're going to air this and we're going to have translations and you're going to be able to watch it is, I think, astounding, but also at the same time, I wish they would have announced it a little bit earlier because there was a lot of unknown. The fact that it even got done, nothing but credit.
And clearly that was, I don't know, maybe not clearly, but to someone that was the plan all along and we just weren't in on it. That's okay. I kind of want to take that over to our work on it. I want to ask you, Heath, we've kind of been doing split duty, you and I, on the episode guide pages. I've been doing the write-ups of the episodes and like notes and that kind of stuff. And then I leave the credits to you. And that's kind of standard. That's been your wheelhouse, going back to the Kanzenshuu days. We kind of alluded to this earlier, but episode 1 was a double length episode, but we didn't have opening and ending animation. So, it was kind of starting from scratch there. And then episode 2 was almost starting from scratch again, because you got that whole new batch of things. And then episode 3, I felt like it was like 2 hours later. You're like, well, I'm done with the credits.
Yeah. Well, so the weird thing was, normally on most Dragon Ball productions, and this is Toei in general, they're going to put most of the series credits within the opening credits. So you're going to get a lot of your overall animation production, story writing, artwork, executive producers, all of the companies that are involved will be listed in the opening credits. And that was not the case in the first episode. A lot of that was all shifted to the end credits.
Yeah.
Which is really weird if you've ever followed Toei's productions. So that kind of threw a lot of things off. Well, then in the second episode, it's like, okay, we're going to go back to more of a traditional, having an opening animation sequence. We're going to have an ending animation sequence. So a lot of that then kind of fell into line, but it was all different. Things were totally out of order compared to what they were in the first episode. So you essentially were starting over from scratch with all of that. And then they decided, which I honestly thought I was almost done with the credits. And they're like, hey, we're going to throw in the entire opening and ending animation specific credits for anyone that animated the opening and the ending. And I about lost it. I think I sent you a message at that time. But it was like, really? I thought I was done. And then not only that, but in the third episode, they are carrying the opening and ending specific animation credits and direction. Anyone that was involved, they're carrying those through every single episode now. Luckily, it looks like they're not changing because they're going to use the same thing. So I'm sure if the animation sequence changes a little bit, they might adjust those. But as of right now, those are all staying the same. They're the same credits. They're not changing. So it's a literal copy and paste. But overall, all the other animation credits change. Your standard credits don't change. So that is kind of nice. That does help. But the first 2 episodes were quite a task to take because they were so different from each other. It was starting from scratch with almost everyone in every facet. Order, it kind of creates a little bit of chaos. And I thought we did a good job with it. I could have done, maybe a little bit better, but there have been many, many times that could have taken me an entire week. And I think credit to some of AJ's help with certain aspects, but mostly his help with the animation guide that we have on the site and being able to utilize that helped me significantly where I really didn't have to consult with anybody at all. It was very nice. And the biggest thing, especially thanks to Superhero translating Chinese names, I have gotten much better at that.
That is part of my question. There's a couple things there. One is the job descriptions, the roles of people, but then the names of people. Obviously, this is going to, or 2024 here. So yeah, there might be some veterans in there, but you're also going to have a ton of new names that you've never seen before. And you're going to have Korean names, you're going to have Chinese names, you're going to have Japanese names, you're going to probably have some American names somewhere along the way.
And that's been the biggest thing is these productions predominantly through GT and even through Kai and somewhat parts of Super were very much Japanese heavy. And we are now in the point of these are global releases with international staffs.
My understanding is also for the old like original series Z, GT, like they didn't actually credit everyone that was on the show. So
a lot of times like within Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT specifically, they would only credit so many key animators, so many in-between animators, and that was it. So you would have a lot of animators, sometimes the animation supervisor that would work on that episode would not be credited as providing key animation. And they would basically limit it to 6 to 8 people. Anyone beyond that would just be dropped off. So you would have a lot of times even Toei Animation animators that actually worked on the episode but would not be credited at all. So nowadays we've entered this really weird realm where we never used to know who animated maybe a specific ending animation or an opening animation or an eye catch.
Right, unless they said
and
so.
And now it's like, we're going to put it in there. We're going to tell you who animated everything specifically all the way through the production. That has never happened before. It's really weird. Episode 3, they tell us who animated the eye catch. That's insane. And that's kind of just the era that we live in and how different things used to be compared to now. And I think it's made a huge difference. I think they realize that people want to know these things and they're actually providing it up front where we used to not have that access before.
I don't know enough about this. This is something AJ would probably have to chime in about too, but whether it's unions or existing, constructs within companies that force the crediting of, even the most junior animator on stuff. Obviously there's still a lot of concerns about the treatment of animators throughout the industry in Japan and abroad, but at least if they can get credited that's something. We could stick on this for forever. Obviously, we've already been going for over half an hour here. So I kind of want to transition to a word that came up earlier. You're talking about the engagement that there's been, people having so much fun talking about the series and all the little minutiae of things. And that's been the word for me is fun. Like I'm just having fun. And not that
absolutely.
Not that I haven't been having fun lately pre-Daima, but there's always, some kind of like new relationship energy whenever there's a new series going on. So there's always some fun. That even trickles down to like, I did the new rumor guide entry yesterday. Like I wrote the entire thing up all in the span of a single day. Like it's just like, it hits you. That inspiration hits you because there's a new thing going on. So I kind of just want to chat about these first 3 episodes with you, like briefly here, and talk about the fun we're having. I kind of want to kick things off with you with maybe this ties in a little bit to the stuff we do on the pages with all the episode notes. I'm handling a lot of the language stuff. Obviously, I have folks that I can rely on to help me with that. There's just a lot of lore dumps going on in these early episodes here.
Absolutely.
So I want to pick your brain on that, not necessarily to talk about them in detail, but is that what you were expecting going into the early episodes here? It was just like, okay, we're going to sit down and you're just going to get 2 minutes of proper nouns.
I think yes and no, honestly. With where Toriyama was with the series when he got involved, I mean, I think it was very clear that he liked what they were doing, but he thought he could do it better.
Yeah.
And we had already had some lore dumps ahead of that through a lot of the movies and the films. And I get the impression that he thought he could expand on that and incorporate that. And honestly, I don't know that I expected it right out of the gate, like as much as what we got.
Yeah.
A lot of the Namek stuff I was somewhat expecting, but it's very upfront and it's very I do love Toriyama's style, and it is very much Toriyama's style of, hey, here's this thing I mentioned a little bit, and I know we've had all these other series and all this other information that's come out, but I'm basically just going to make it like Piccolo knew. He just knew.
Yeah.
It's never been mentioned, but he just knew, and you should have known. Like, that's obvious, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, good on you. I appreciate that. But where was that coming from? Because if you don't follow it and you don't know that he's made those comments, it's like so out of left field that it can catch you off guard.
Yeah. So we got a couple things there. One, just the Namekian stuff in particular, obviously spinning out of the granola material from the super manga. Mm-hmm. But then something I feel like I've mentioned a few times over the years here is, I think I said this maybe even on the last episode of the podcast or the last two, but Toriyama will say things in interviews and then hold on to it for years. Some of the earliest examples were like the double eye visor that a while later we actually got with Tagoma in Resurrection F. There are things like that. Yeah, there are some things that are very clearly promotional in nature, like, hey, tell us about Goku's mother, Gine. Yes, let me tell you about Gine, who you will see next month in Jacko the Galactic Patrolman. But then there are other things. He's been talking about the demon world and these little gremlin things since the full color interviews. And that stuff's just hanging out there. And I don't know if like he's really hung up on it or he got reminded about it when this stuff came to him. But
well, all the Makaio stuff that came out with, like super exciting guys.
When will someone say Makaio Shin?
Yeah. It's like, this has been a thing forever since the early 2000s. And now some of it is finally coming to fruition.
That port of Zenkai Battle Royale's coming any day now. Yep. I promise you. That's just so funny to me is that like it keeps happening. Like we're probably one day going to get a one shot of like the Mr. Satan backstory of like the dojo or whatever happened there. Like all those things, the Gevo stuff came around again. Like all of this stuff that he has said, like eventually comes around again, even if it contradicts something. And that's kind of fun too.
It is. That brings up a point that I really didn't want to go there, but I feel like we have to, of just how much of what we're seeing is also the nostalgia of knowing this is kind of the last hurrah of lore dump, information dump that we are going to see. Because I know I've come at this from a totally different perspective now of knowing I want this to last forever, but I know it can't. Mm-hmm. Because when are we going to get to the point where this series is going to end? And what is that going to look like as far as whatever Toriyama has set up? Yeah. And what does it lead into? Because I think there's going to be a very no fault to Toei or Shueisha themselves. There will be a clear distinction between Toriyama endorsed / created by them in comparison. Yeah. And I'm curious what that's going to look like. I just want to enjoy this for what it is for right now. I really do. Yeah. I just think at some point we're going to get to that, and I'm curious what that's going to look like and how people are going to handle that.
And also the granularity of how much involvement there was. Like, obviously, we know he was heavily involved in this series. Okay, then did he leave additional notes for maybe the future? Like, what does Toyotaro have from any meetings they would have had about the next arc? So, like, obviously he's passed, but does Toyotaro still have approval / sign off for whatever comes next there? Okay, but then what after that? Then that doesn't necessarily have. But then are they pulling some notes maybe he left? Like, so it's just like a series of less and less involvement. At the same time, I look to something like the second half of the Sandland animated adaptation, which felt as much like a true Toriyama continuation of that series as could possibly exist. And I don't know how they pulled it off. And so we have Ioku over here. Obviously, there's all this stuff going on with the rights and what Ioku wants to do. And Ioku's like, no, fuck AI. And I'm Toriyama's right-hand man. And I want to do everything by Toriyama. King Ioku is truly King Ioku, I think. And I stand by and salute this man. Is the story, the understanding, like he greenlit Sandland without anyone else's approval? Like he just went ahead with it and did this thing?
I think so.
Like, you know what, sir? Fucking A, man. Yeah, you get it, dude. You get this shit done. And I truly wonder, like, can Ioku lead us into an appropriate new era? Like, even with this less oversight that still feels true and real to that world. And like, you can probably hear it in my voice. Like, I'm excited and sad about it at the same time because
for sure. I think I'm in the same boat.
Even when I don't like it, I can tell when Toriyama's fingerprint is on it and that lends it something, whether that's credibility or enjoyment or like whatever it ends up being in the end. There's something very distinct about it. And we're not going to have that post Daima. You know, I think about things like the super manga, if that continues, or if it doesn't, what comes after that. They're going to do something after Daima. They're going to do something after Super. Who knows what it'll be? Maybe it's a new movie. I also think about things like Dragon Quest is in another interesting situation where obviously Toriyama didn't write Dragon Quest. Even Yuji Horii, as an executive producer, is not writing all the vignettes anymore. And fuck Sugiyama, but like that, what are we going to get for Dragon Quest 12 when that comes around? Is that going to be the final like protagonist design from Toriyama? Did he do any new monsters? What does that mean for the future of Dragon Quest beyond that too? Like all these things that Toriyama lends his personal identity to, we're getting the tail end of it. And I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, no, it's a very difficult question because I've been grappling with that. I think a lot of people have. Honestly, it's a hard pill to swallow, really, when you've been used to it for so many, centuries, centuries, for decades.
Centuries.
I wish it was like centuries. Oh my God. Yeah. It just, because there is definitely a distinct feel to when you are watching something that he has been directly involved in.
Yeah.
And I think we are at the point where we're about to enter this era of have the people that worked with him over the years picked up enough to really replicate what that feel is like. Can they do that themselves? Because really, like Toyotaro, you would think has been around him enough, but he is very honest in most of his interviews of, hey, I did this, but Sensei came in and said this, and so we switched it. It was for the better, and you just kind of wonder, is that what's going to happen moving forward? And I think that's the hard part, because we don't know what that's going to look like until it actually happens.
We got so far away from my question of, how do we like these episodes of Daima?
No, so I love these episodes of Daima. They have been fantastic. I love the lore. I love the storytelling. It's very characteristic of what you've seen in a lot of Toriyama works. It's very character specific, but he knows when to throw in the humor and when to not. And some of the action work has been just phenomenal. I mean, he has done, and not just him, but the animation staff and some of the things that they have worked in. Man, they put the hours in on some of these cutscenes. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
The fluidity, just the storytelling, even the music, the way it has cued so many things that have happened in these first 3 episodes. There are things that you can come in and say, maybe the storyboarding here and there has been a little iffy, but overall, I mean, you can tell that they have had time to work on this and that they have tweaked things to get to a certain look that they wanted to get to, or a certain action sequence. And it has worked well. The comedy, the action, a lot of things have played off of each other very, very well. I know a lot of people are like, I like Super. Super was done well. If Super was in any way having a production schedule of what Daima has had, I can't even imagine, because coming off of that into this, it's such a contrast. It really is. And I don't want to take anything away from Super. It is a great series for what it was, but you can tell they were behind the 8 ball for probably 3/4 of that project. Whereas this series has had lead up. It has had excellent pre-production, which we have not seen in such a long time, that it has made such a stark difference of how much things have looked and played off each other and just the dynamics. And, we can complain about, eye catches and intros and outros and endings, that it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because the storytelling has been fantastic. And I can't say enough about that. I don't know how you feel, and maybe I'll let you talk at some point, because I'm just going to keep talking about how amazing this has looked. But I've loved it. I've really enjoyed it. I really, really have. And I'm so happy that this is what we were left with, because it could have been literally Super 2.0 all over again.
Yeah.
And the fact that that is not what we ended up with just melts my heart. It really, really does.
The pre-production time and the thoughtfulness about stuff, what gets brought to mind for me there is, if you check out the episode guide pages, some of the stuff I've been doing there, work on the pages, is comparing animation from the final broadcast episode versus the initial teaser and then the main trailer. And there's some really funny stuff in there. There's also some interesting stuff. Interesting stuff would be things like when Goku lands and says hello to Karin, Goku is completely redrawn there compared to the original version there. That's interesting. That's more in line with Nakatsuru's, character design for him there. If you look at the mouth in particular, there's stuff there. But then there's stuff like they changed the color of the wine behind Kaioshin and Kibito. That's really intentional. And why the fuck would you do that?
No, I know what you mean, because it really shows how much of a difference we see between what was in the trailers and the fact that they're going back.
Yeah, they're thinking about
tweaking things. Yeah.
Episode 3 was another one where the dragon swoops in, and that looked so beautiful in the trailer. You just assume that would be the final version. But then you look at the final broadcast episodes, oh no, they added motion blur in there. They smoothed out the clouds so it wasn't quite so white, it's a little more translucent and natural in the backgrounds there. So even that kind of stuff, even though the animation and the drawings of the dragon itself is literally exactly the same. It's the composition of the background stuff. But then they will redraw entire scenes too, like Goku and Kaioshin laying in bed. The drawings are entirely different. They'll do things like when Goku was kicking the pillar. I don't know if that was altered for the trailer just to fit a specific framing there, but the camera's different, the blur is different in the final episode. This stuff feels different than, for example, Jiren being in the Tournament of Power teaser and then being swapped out for Toppo. That was clearly a last minute, oh fuck, what do we do? Toriyama said, change his character. This feels intentional, and they've been thinking about it for a while. And they have the time to be you know what? Let's just go in. What if we add a little motion blur here?
I think it really is interesting how many scenes they've gone back that we've found, and by we, I mean you.
And there's probably some I haven't caught, but there's also some that are exactly the same. And I'm okay, so that's been the same for a year. Okay.
I mean, you normally get your animation corrections in general, but the fact that production was so far along.
Yeah.
And they pulled a lot of that into the trailers and then went back and actually revised them, I think says a lot. That it really tells me, as much as anyone wants to debate this, that Toei themselves and a lot of the animators that are working on the series, they want this to be up to the highest of standards, as if Toriyama was still there reviewing their drawings.
I mean, we have that comment from the 30th anniversary book.
They legitimately are like, this is his legacy, and we want this to be just phenomenal.
We can't do this again.
Yeah, and I think it's accurate. It really is. There's no going back at this point. And the effort that they have put in has been fantastic to see. I wish we would have seen it sooner in a lot of other productions. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, a Dragon Ball Super Broly was just a masterpiece in what you can do with animation, hand-drawn animation, including some minor CGI and a digital drawing. A Dragon Ball Superhero was kind of its own thing.
Morishita finally got a CG movie.
Yep. I mean, to me, that was more of a proof of concept of, can we do this and what would it look like? They did a decent job. Like, I can't really fault them in what they did. Is it what I want? Is it what maybe a lot of people want? Probably not. I would take Dragon Ball Super Broly like 100 times before I take another superhero.
I disagree, because I think Broly's kind of a bad movie. But
no,
anyway.
I'm saying animation. I'm strictly talking about animation. Is that what you're debating?
There's a lot of stuff I can and have said about those films. Heath, we've been going for a while. I don't want to hold you forever. We're going to
I'll
talk
stay here forever, Mike. Please don't make me go.
Obviously, we're going to talk more about the story itself as we have more things to talk about in larger portions of a show here.
As we go along.
But I can't let this go without kind of getting this question and feelers out here. Oh, God.
Okay.
So is this a third pillar of continuity where we reach Buu arc and then you go left to GT, you go straight to Super, you go right to Daima?
It is a really difficult situation that everybody has put this in, as far as we have just exhausted these years between the end of Z and GT.
Like, oh shit, we still got 2 years that we can fit stuff in.
I know. When you look at the timeline, it is crazy how much stuff you can just cram into one period of time. I get it. You skipped such a large period that you can fit all these things in. But I hate to go there, but the fact that we may be to the point where we're going to get beyond GT is going to be post Toriyama era.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. It really is not, because you're going to get a lot of pushback.
Unless we get Neko Majin adaptation.
Yes, it kind of is what it is at this point. I mean, there's no way around it, because, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Toriyama is not here. And that's the sad fact of affairs. That's where we are.
I just think it's so fucking interesting how hung up. I mean, it's not like I don't care about continuity, and I don't know. Folks have certainly heard this from me, but I'm currently going through the entire works of Stephen King. So I am wrapping up the last Dark Tower book right now as we speak.
Oh, there you go.
And so for me, like, I don't know how to put it in words other than there are worlds other than these. Like, there are just different levels of the tower, and that's all Dragon Ball is right now. It's just different levels of the tower.
Well, and I think Toriyama, to his benefit, has really created a very diverse world, in that we have so many different realms between, the living realm. We have a Daima in general, which, as far as we know at this point, is really delving into that demon realm that we have never really gone into before, but it's been listed in.
We got a fucking statue of Dabra. I love it.
Oh, that was fantastic. I want one of those in my front yard so that my neighbors will be like,
what a great Halloween accessory. Yeah.
And we've gone into the Kaio realm. We've gone into the Kaioshin realm. We have all of these different realms that we've gone into, but so many that are really, really unexplored that he has established. The majority of the series that we see is in the living realm. And the fact that we are just now getting to the demon realm, that he felt really was a push that he wanted to go toward. Toei pushed him that way.
It's such a 2000s Toriyama thing. I mean, ignoring what Ioku did with Sandland and then, a sequel, basically a sequel to that. But you go back to, Sandland, but also Booble and Koa, like all the stuff that Toriyama was so interested in this world of demons and angels. And
absolutely,
God, if you
have followed his career, that is a mainstay of what he has always been involved in.
God, can we get a Tochio cameo maybe too? Like that would be incredible. I don't think that's going to happen, but
no, it's not going to. But your dreams would come true, Mike.
Yeah, the number one Tochio stan, Mike Labrie. Man, I don't know what else to say, but I'm having a fun time, and this was probably the most, I don't even know what the word is, haphazard, slapdash, all over the place.
Well, I think we started off talking about random stuff and then kind of like went into the podcast. So I think we should just start over at this point.
Okay.
Record the whole thing and just go.
This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast episode.
No, this has been a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed this. I know some people might have their qualms about certain things, and I know we do too. Like, trust me, this is not like, the most absolutely perfect release that's ever happened.
Oh, certainly not.
But
no.
I am just enjoying it for what it is in the moment. I think we should all do that because this has honestly been something that so many fans have asked for so long. I know there's one subject that we haven't really touched on of like, this is just GT Light and we're going back because Toriyama redid it. But honestly, I mean, it is what it is at this point, and it's just been fun.
I think my last comment on the content for what we've seen so far is like, remember, we're only 3 episodes in as we're talking right now. We've seen from trailers and even the openings, like we know Super Saiyan is coming. Like there are going to be big fights. And
what?
I think a lot of people throw shade at whether it's us or other folks of like, they don't even like the fights. They only like Dragon Ball for the poop jokes. Like that's really... I don't know what word or phrase I'm looking for, but it's taking things out of context and putting words where they don't belong. It's not that I don't like the fighting. It's that I like all of these aspects, and to know that by the end we will have all of those aspects. I'm enjoying the early stuff for what it is while being excited for what's coming later as well. And we haven't really had a series with this kind of mix since they tried with GT.
We really just have to enjoy this for what it is as we have it and go along. Even if we know this is a shorter series than, let's say, 131 episodes, that it is what it is. And 3 episodes in, I mean, they have me hook, line, and sinker because if they can keep this up and I'm going to be here every week. I'm going to watch it every week. I will admit, I wish I could binge watch this. Because I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah. By the end of episode 3, I was like, okay, I am ready. This is fine, but I'm ready for it to pick up a little bit here. I don't want it to slow down too much. I kind of want to get into like whatever the actual story is going to be. Obviously, we got Pansy coming, so there's going to be more. Like we don't even have one of the main characters yet. So,
well, I think even through the 3rd episode, and I felt this, and I heard this from at least a lot of people on social media, how the 3rd episode, even though 30-minute episode, felt like that thing was done in 10 minutes because of just that is what they're doing with these episodes. And it is amazing. I want more. I just want so much more. Not like give me more better animation, give me more better storytelling. I wish these episodes were like an hour long. I would watch it.
All right, we're going to get out of here, but I'm going to ask, I'm going to give you mine first, but then I'm going to get yours, Heath. Favorite tiniest, just little moment of something from these first 3 episodes. Mine is probably recency bias, but Goku accidentally extending Noibo inside the ship and hitting the roof of the ship. Just non sequitur, just fucking hysterical. I love it. What is your favorite, just like a little thing that's happened the first 3 episodes?
One of my favorite things was when he goes to look for Noibo and he's like, hey, have you seen this? I know it connects. Yeah. And they're, oh, no, I think I gave that to Kamae-Senin. Okay. And then when he goes there, I mean, it is so original Dragon Ball of Muten Roshi just looking in the mirror and look at me, I'm so young. And wait, you're looking for... Oh, I don't know where that is. Did they give that to me? I don't know. And then it turns out it's just out there. He's hanging clothes off of it on his laundry line. It's like, what?
Looking back and forth, looking to the pole, looking to the window, sweat dropping, looking to the pole, looking to the window.
And the fact that they don't even show him like going to get it, it just cuts to the next scene and then he has it.
Heath, I would ask what you have to plug, but this is the thing. This is Kanzenshuu.
I'd like to plug whatever Mike is doing on the site because legitimately, I think my goal is to try to keep up with animation production, whether people know it or not. We may start advertising it. We'll at least post, hey, animation credits are online. I think those are going to go up in the animation production guide long before we may get the episode up moving forward. That's just the way things go because we get those done first, and everything else is us doing research and writing. And so definitely keep an eye on that. Usually within, I'd say 8 to 10 hours, that's going to be up if you want to see those things. Otherwise, wait for the episode guide page to come up. That'll have everything in it that you could ever want to know about anything with that episode. The nice thing, I really have to praise everybody else that does kind of help us out. All of our friends, fans that provide us some insights that we don't always see. We're not end all be all people. I hate to admit it, but the fact that we have people that also know things that we may not know, and then combined with the things that we do know, make these episode guide pages what they are. We can really put them together in a timely fashion, get them out to everybody. And I think it's a great resource, especially in the day and age that we live in, that we cover so many things from production to audio to backstory, covers a lot of things. You can find it on the website. And props to all the different people that end up giving us guidance on a lot of those things that we rely on all the time, who kind of are behind the scenes that we don't always give praise to, but honestly, they are our friends and they are fantastic and we love them all.
Yeah, thanks to them, but also I think I'm one of the only few people that understands that Rakase, this is the third time that name has been used. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Number one Sachi fan over here, Mike Lepre.
Definitely the number one, because you might be the only one.
No, there are other people.
Okay.
I was going to wrap up the show, but I'll probably record some separate stuff. I got to think about and plug other things that we got going on. So, Heath, thank you. We'll see and hear you again sometime soon, maybe, huh?
Absolutely. I think you have a busy schedule, Mike. I really don't want to hold you.
I don't know what the future holds for us, but there will be more episodes.
So just everybody hang tight. Really enjoy what we are experiencing right now, because we have been through so many things over the years. And I think this is really a point for everybody to come together and enjoy what we have. The fact that it's in Japanese, English, we have subtitles, it's simulcast, it's everywhere globally. I think that is fantastic for this fandom, and it's something that we have truly needed for a very, very long time. And we are there. We can enjoy it together. We can enjoy Toriyama's last hurrah and just be there for each other. And I love it. I really love it. Mike, thank you so much for having me on again for this. It's been a while. I'm having a lot of fun. I really am having a lot of fun. And I think that's what it's all about.
Waka waka.
I hope everybody else can be on board with that and just enjoy what we're experiencing, because this is going to be a fantastic ride. And I hope it lasts forever, even if it won't.
Thank you again, and as always, to Heath for joining me. Always great to find some time that our schedules work out there. You heard us mention it, but the episode guide is live with Dragon Ball Daima content. We have full credits translations. Hey, they don't translate that stuff on the simulcast. The only place you're going to see Maybe it's not the only place, but certainly we're doing it first. The only place you're going to see who animates what on these episodes, you got to come on over to Kanzenshuu. Alongside all that, extensive notes for the episodes, translation commentary, some animation differences, good stuff there. The other thing I want to plug is I'm always excited to work on new Rumor Guide stuff. The one I had been working on this week, hey, is the Turtle Hermit an actual champion of the Tenkaichi Budokai, and not as Jackie Chun? Why is this a question, you may ask? Well, Goku says he is in Dragon Ball Z Movie 2. Now, of course, movies are not canonical to the main series, but interesting point there. And then that same information gets raised by the Turtle Hermit himself in a conversation during a filler scene in Dragon Ball Z. And then there's the anime comic for DBZ Movie 2, which kind of connects all the dots and says he is and even when it was. So it may not be up right away when you hear this episode. I want to do one more proofing on that article. Thank you to all the patrons over in our Patreon chat who helped proofread and actually even track down the one episode I was looking for because I was looking on the wrong disc. So I appreciate that help tracking down that quote from the Turtle Hermit from the filler stuff, Rumor Guide stuff, and patrons have actually gotten a sneak peek at an entirely new website section that I've been teasing for a while. And then Daima kind of got in the way, and then, you know, I have the memory of a goldfish and the attention span of something that doesn't have an attention span, and I get distracted. But I have a series of other things all basically done and just waiting for someone to hit the publish button on it. And I'd love to get that out by the end of the year. I thought it was going to be summer, but it's coming. It's just about ready. So I appreciate some other proofreading and fact checking that's been going on. Just lots of great folks out there. What can I say? www.kanzenshuu.com. That is the website that you're listening to right now, Kanzenshuu. Other things that are worth checking out. Look for Kanzenshuu on all the social medias. You can, of course, go to patreon.com/Kanzenshuu if you want to help keep the lights on every month. You can check out twitch.tv/VegettoEX or grabyournearest.com every Saturday night, roughly every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. It is just a continuation of the conversations that you have here, a little more freewheeling maybe, while a group of us plays video games. I think that's it. I have been Mike. You may see me around the internets as VegettoEX. Thank you as always. I guess I will get to work on the next podcast episode, so I'll see you then.